How many other than me have been absolutely shocked about how many books in the Old Testament talk about the millennial kingdom? When I started this, I think I've counted like 52 chapters talking about it. That's not even close. I think I've gotten up to like 75 chapters in the Old Testament that have some reference to the millennial kingdom, that time to come. In fact, when I originally did my study, I thought, the minor prophets, there's Zechariah. Yeah, sure, that's got a lot in it, but the rest of them not much. As you can see, I was absolutely wrong. If you start reading through them, you realize that, hey, there's a lot in even these books that reference a time ahead, and there's a purpose to it. You have to remember the minor prophets, most of them, you see pre-captivity. These are before the Israel captivity by the Assyrians, as they took them out of Israel and spread them. Dispersion is probably more appropriate than captivity. And some are pre the Judah captivity to Babylon. And their message was always what? God is very angry with you. What you're doing is wrong. Your hearts are far from God. And God is going to bring his judgment. Right? Disperse the 10 tribes, captivity for 70 years, the southern tribes, right? So that's what he's going to do. But in that, as he tells these prophets to tell the people that the judgment is coming, he also wants to remind them that will God still keep all of his promises? No. And will there be a time when their king, the King of Kings, related to David, will sit upon the throne in Jerusalem, and they will have peace in the land? And their hearts, more importantly, will be turned to him. And they will serve him with all of their heart. And he will have the Israel that he always wanted. Isn't that nice to know? It's about what they're going to go through. It's going to be tough. Is it nice to know that there's going to be hope? And that's really what this is about. In fact, let's start with Hosea. So if you want to find that, go to Daniel. So Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel, Daniel, those are all the major prophets. And the first one, we're just going to go in order of the minor prophets tonight. If you're in Daniel, go right, and you'll find Hosea. Now, Hosea is a very interesting character. This is a very odd thing for God to ask of Hosea. He says, hey, Hosea, you're my guy, you're my prophet. I want you to go and I want you to marry a prostitute who's going to be absolutely unfaithful to you in the entire marriage. Yep. It's like, and Hosea's like, okay. Have kids with her. And by the way, she's going to be unfaithful during the entire marriage and be a terrible mom. Okay. But it was a picture of what? Picture of Israel, the unfaithful Israel. God was the husband. Israel was his bride, right? He made promises at the altar that he would do these things. She made promises. Who was faithful? He was. She was not, right? And she was this picture of one who, no matter how much the husband loved her, no matter how much Hosea loved her and forgave her and watched out for her and cared for her, she was going to be unfaithful. And that's the picture of Israel. Yet, let's go to Hosea chapter 1, verse 10. After saying, I want you to marry this person, and the reason I want you to marry this person, he says, through Hosea chapter 1, verse 10, yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, you are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, you are the sons of the living God. Then shall the children of Judah and the children of Israel be gathered together and appoint themselves one head, and they shall come up out of the land, for the great shall be the day of Jezreel. And there's, even though they've been unfaithful and continue to be faithful, and to this day continue to be unfaithful, there is going to come a day when God will bring them and gather them, and they will be what they were intended to be. And their numbers will multiply, and they will have peace in the land, and he will be their God, and they will be his people. He will be their groom, and they will be his bride, faithful bride. That day is coming. In fact, let's go to chapter 2, starting in verse 14. This is talking about the adulterous wife, Israel. Hosea chapter 2, verse 14. Therefore, behold, I will allure her and bring her into the wilderness and speak comfortably unto her. Now, if you remember, we've already seen this in other prophecies. How God will call them from where? All the different nations, and he will bring them to the wilderness, and he will talk to them, right? And he will then bring them into the land. And this is what he's talking about. Even though they've been unfaithful, he is faithful, right? Verse 15, and I will give her vineyards from thence, and the valley of Achor for a door of hope. And she shall sing there as in the days of her youth, as in the day when she came up out of the land of Egypt. When she was pure, when he was there, she was his, right? Will bring them out as in that day, verse 16. And it shall be at that day, saith the Lord, that thou shalt call me Ishi. Everybody goes, what? It means my husband. And shalt call me no more Baali, my Lord. The relationship's going to change. It's not, oh, you're my master, I'm your servant, you tell me what to do, I'll rebel. It's going to be, you are my what? You're my husband. I am your wife. You are my husband. This is no longer a master-servant relationship. This is a what? A husband and a wife. A loving relationship. And the relationship will be pure again. Verse 17. For I will take away the names of Balaam out of her mouth, and they shall no more be remembered by their name. And in that day I will make a covenant for them with the beasts of the field, and with the fowls of heaven, and with the creeping things of the ground. And I will break the bow and the sword and the battle out of the earth, and will make them lie down safely. And I will betroth thee unto me forever. Yea, I will betroth thee unto me in righteousness and in judgment and in loving kindness and in mercies. I will even betroth thee unto me in faithfulness. And thou shalt know the Lord. Is this hope?
Yes.
Even though they've been unfaithful and continue to be unfaithful, God will have a time when they will set things right. And they will be a loving husband and wife again. Right? There is hope for that future. In fact, let's go to chapter 3, verses 4 and 5. And chapter 3 is all about this undying love of God for his wife, Israel. And he finishes up here with 4 and 5. For the children of Israel shall abide many days without a king, and without a prince, and without a sacrifice, without an image, and without an ephod, and without teraphim. Afterward shall the children of Israel return, and seek the Lord their God, and David their king, and shall fear the Lord and his goodness in the latter days. So there's coming a latter day. Now there's going to be a time when there'll be no king, there'll be no sacrifices. By the way, when is that time? Now.
No king.
There's been one for a long time, right? Since the Romans. There's been no king. And since Rome came and destroyed Jerusalem, there's been no sacrifices. There have been none of that, right? But there will come a time after that they will seek their one true King David, which is who? Jesus Christ. And he will sit upon the throne in the latter days. In fact, let's go to chapter 14. Verse 1. And this is great advice in light of all of this. O Israel, return to the Lord thy God. For thou hast fallen by thine iniquity. Now again, this whole book is about how God is going to judge them. But spread throughout this is what? There is hope because God is faithful. They will just return. Remember Nineveh? That terrible city of the Assyrians? When Jonah said, God's going to destroy you, what did they do? They repented, right? Now we're going to get to Nahum here. Something changed, but still, I mean, it's, hey, given all this, given how much God loves you, how much he will forgive you, turn to him now, right? But look, verse 2. Take with you words and turn to the Lord, say unto him, take away all iniquity and receive us graciously. So will we render the calves of our lips. Asher shall not save us. We will not ride upon horses, neither will we say any more to the work of our hands, you are our gods, for in thee the fatherless findest mercy. Right? God is the faithful. Turn from your idols. Turn from your other gods. I will heal their backsliding. I will love them freely, for mine anger is turned away from him. I will be as the dew unto Israel. He shall grow as the lily and cast forth his roots as Lebanon. His branches shall spread, and his beauty shall be as the olive tree, and his smell as Lebanon. They that dwell under his shadow shall return. They shall revive as the corn and grow up as the vine. The scent thereof shall be as the wine of Lebanon. Ephraim shall say, what have I to do any more with idols? That'd be nice, huh? Has Ephraim ever been without idols? That's the 10 tribes of the north. Anybody remember what the first thing, the first king of the 10 tribes did? Make 2 idols. One in the north part, one in the southern part, so everybody would go to them instead of go to Jerusalem. They have not been without idols, but there will come a time when they will what? Turn from their idols. Amen. I have heard him and observed him. I am like a green fir tree. From me is thy fruit found. Who is wise, and he shall understand these things? Prudent, he shall know them. For the ways of the Lord are right, and the just walk in them, but the transgressor shall fall therein. So right there at the end, even as he's saying, hey, you better turn, he still reminds them that there will be a day when they will. Right? So is there hope?
Amen.
Yes. By the way, is this good news for us too? Because do we still sin sometimes? Yes. Maybe some more than others. Not being No, we still sin, but will God always be faithful to his promise? Yes. As he is to Israel, he will be faithful. So yes, unfaithful Israel, yet God will keep his promise. And he will have that bride he's always wanted. In fact, let's go to Joel. Or Joel, if you prefer. Joel. Also a pre-captivity, and his is also talking about what? Judgment on Israel, those 10 tribes of the north. Samaria is also called. Ephraim it's also called. But the judgment on Israel. But even in this judgment, redemption is promised. Joel chapter 2, starting in verse 21. Fear not, O land. Be glad and rejoice, for the Lord will do great things. This is after he said, God will destroy the land. God will destroy the cities. There will be great judgment on Israel. He says still what? Don't worry. What did God promise Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? To give them the promised land. And here God's saying, yeah, you're going to be thrown out of it. But don't fear, O land, because God will keep his promises, right? Verse 22, be not afraid, you beasts of the field, for the pastures of the wilderness do spring, for the tree bears her fruit, the fig tree and the vine do yield their strength. Be glad then, you children of Zion, and rejoice in the Lord your God, for he hath given you the former rain moderately. And he will cause to come down for you the rain, the former rain, and the latter rain in the first month. And the floor shall be full of wheat, and the fats shall overflow with wine and oil. And I will restore you to the years that the locust hath eaten, the cankerworm and the caterpillar and the palmer worm, my great army which I sent among you. I've sent you pestilence to come and eat your crops and destroy them, but I'm going to get rid of them. There's going to be peace in this land. And you shall eat in plenty and be satisfied and praise the name of the Lord your God. That's the key there, isn't it? And all of this he will be praised. That have dealt wondrously with you, and my people shall never be ashamed. Never again will this happen after the millennial kingdom comes, right? Have they been destroyed since then? Yes. And they'll continue. And there's a great tribulation coming where they will really be destroyed. But there will come a time when this millennial kingdom comes that they will not be ashamed that way ever again. Verse 27, you shall know that I am in the midst of Israel, and that I am the Lord your God, and none else, and my people shall never be ashamed. Getting back to what? I am your God. This is a common theme in all these millennial kingdom passages, is so that Israel will know that I am their God, and the world will know that I am their God. Right? Mm-hmm. And this is going to happen, and not just for the land. Let's go to chapter 3, verse 17. So shall you know that I am the Lord your God, dwelling where? In Zion, my holy mountain, Jerusalem. Then shall Jerusalem be holy, and there shall no strangers pass through her anymore. This has to be the millennial kingdom, doesn't it? That's the picture we always get, is that God is in Jerusalem, and no unclean thing will come into Jerusalem ever again. Right? And it shall come to pass in that day that the mountains shall drop down new wine, and the hills shall flow with milk, and all the rivers of Judah shall flow with waters, and a fountain shall come forth of the house of the Lord, and shall water the valley of Shittim. We saw this in Ezekiel. We saw those great rivers coming down from the mountain of Jerusalem and giving waters to the valleys, right? By the way, you do realize Jerusalem's on the top of a mountain, right? Mm-hmm. Where's that water coming from? From underneath. Wells and fountains will come out of Jerusalem to water everything. Verse 19. Egypt shall be a desolation, and Edom shall be a desolate wilderness for the violence against the children of Judah, because they have shed innocent blood in their hand. And again, during that millennial kingdom, there will be justice for all those nations that went against Israel, who applauded at their destruction. And he will just make them desolate, but he will bring what? Prosperity to Israel. But Judah shall dwell forever, and Jerusalem from generation to generation. For I will cleanse their blood that I have not cleansed. For the Lord dwells where? In Zion. There is redemption for the land. There is redemption for Jerusalem. Right? He will bring that about in the millennial kingdom. So again, if you're sitting there and it's talking about the judgment of Israel, what are we also talking about? God will set things right, right? This will be a land of plenty again someday. Has this happened yet? No. Nope. Not yet. What about Amos? Next one. Next book. Now Amos specifically is talking about the future captivity, and captivity is quite a strong word, dispersion and destruction of Israel, those 10 tribes, which is interesting. Amos always find interesting because he is writing most of this prophecy about the destruction during probably the most prosperous time of Israel. This is during the time of Jeroboam II. He has expanded the borders of the land much further than anybody else had done. There is prosperity. Everything's going well, except they happen to be worshiping who? Every god imaginable, except for God. Right? They're doing idols and worship and everything else. And that's what the book's all about. It said, hey, yeah, things may be going well for you, but they're not going to be for long because you're not right with God. Right? But even in the midst of that, even in the midst of, hey, destruction and dispersion are coming because you have turned against God, has God given up on them? Chapter 9. Amos chapter 9. Here's another one of those in that day. What we learned last week about in that day? There is coming a day, right? Those are hard to pin down exactly when. But there's coming a day. In that day will I raise up the tabernacle of who? David, that is fallen, and close up the breaches thereof. And I will raise up his ruins, and I will build it as the days of old, that they may possess the remnant of Edom, and out of the heathen, which are called by my name, saith the Lord that doeth this. Now again, this tabernacle of David, it can be Jerusalem, right? That's his city, right? He's going to rebuild the walls, and bring it into a stronghold again. In fact, look, verse 13. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that the plowman shall overtake the reaper, and the treader of grapes him that soweth seed, and the mountains shall drop sweet wine, and all the hills shall melt. Boy, they got a lot of wine flowing in this country, don't they? There's wine rolling off the mountains there. People like to drink their wine. Verse 14. And I will bring again the captivity of my people of Israel, and they shall build the waste cities and inhabit them, and they shall plant vineyards and drink the wine thereof. There's that wine again. They shall also make gardens and eat the fruit of them, and I will plant them upon the land, and they shall no more be pulled up out of their land, which I have given them, saith the Lord thy God. So yes, because of your sin, I'm going to pluck you out of this land, But I'm going to take you out of those other lands, and I'm going to come and I'm going to replant you. And nobody will ever pluck you out again. Okay? And that starts with what? The coming of Christ. And the beginning of the millennial kingdom. That's what's going to happen, right? His people. So what is there? There's hope, right? But only hope in God, right?
Yes.
Israel at this point had their hope in who? In Jeroboam II, right? In their army. In their prosperity. In their trade. In their money. And all those things. What good are those going to do against the Assyrians? Nothing. They're going to wipe them out pretty fast. All right? So, Hosea, Joel, Amos. Let's go to Micah. Got to skip over Obadiah. And Jonah. Let's get to Micah. Micah is still a pre-captivity, and this is, again, judgment on Israel for all their sins. But again, even as he recounts their sins and tells of the judgment to come, what does he have to say? Chapter 4, starting in verse 1. Micah, chapter 4, verse 1. But in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain of the house of the Lord shall be established in the top of the mountains, and it shall be exalted above the hills, and people shall flow unto it. This is very similar to Isaiah, Jeremiah, Zechariah, that all the world will flow to who? What will be the capital of the world? New York City? No.
Jerusalem.
Jerusalem, yeah, of course. It'll be the capital of the world, isn't it? And many nations shall come and say, Come and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord and to the house of God of Jacob. And he will teach us his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For the law shall go forth of Zion, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. And he shall judge among many people, and rebuke strong nations afar off. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. He's going to put an end to the war, because once war starts, who can end it?
God.
You've seen how hard it is to end a war, right? These wars just keep going on. Even people losing just keep warring. What's the problem with these people? How quickly can God stop a war? None of that. And he will put an end to it, because he will rule with an iron rod. And all the world will know that he is the king. Verse 4. But they shall sit every man under his vine and under his fig tree, and none shall make them afraid, for the mouth of the Lord of hosts hath spoken it. Who says so? God says so. For all people will walk every one in the name of his God, and we will walk in the name of the Lord our God forever and ever. That is the most amazing little statement. We're always talking about what's the millennium going to be like. How many would think it makes sense if everybody worldwide worshiped God, the true God, the God of Israel, Jesus Christ the King? What does it say there? No, nations will still worship their little gods, little g gods. They're still going to worship other gods, little gods that they make. But who has the real God? Jerusalem has the real God, right? And he will show that. And if they rise up, he'll put them down, right? And he will judge. He will prove that he is the one true God. In fact, look verse 6. In that day, saith the Lord, will I assemble her that halteth, and I will gather her that is driven out, and her that I have afflicted. I will make her that halted a remnant, and her that was cut off a strong nation. And the Lord shall reign over them in Mount Zion from henceforth even forever. He is that king, the descendant of David, who will sit upon the throne for what? Forever. That was a promise made to Mary, wasn't it? He's a fulfillment of that prophecy. Jesus Christ is that one, and that day is coming. And he will, again, in a book where he's saying, I'm going to disperse you and send you out to all over the world for your sins, I'm going to also what? Bring you back. There will always be a remnant that I will bring back. And they will come, and I will be their king, and I will be their God. So, anybody see a similar message coming through a lot of this? This is the message of the minor prophets. Judgment's coming because of their sin, but God is not going to give up on them, right? What about Zephaniah? Get past Nahum and Habakkuk. Habakkuk. I was always told Habakkuk, but I don't think that's right. I'm from Bakersfield. I won't pronounce anything correctly. Zephaniah. Now, Zephaniah, again, pre-captivity, and this one is more towards Judah. fascinating, again, because Amos, which is mostly to Israel, those 10 tribes of the north, is during a time of great prosperity. He's saying, no, you're worshiping idols, you're going to be destroyed. Anybody know when Zephaniah was prophesying?
Revival.
Yeah, during the time of great revival under Josiah. There was great revival. There was finally, after all those years, they finally were doing the Sabbath. They were keeping the feasts. They were doing the Passover. They had the altar was going again, and the religion was going again. Everything was going, and here comes Zephaniah saying, nah. No. This is not going to do. Because like during the time of Isaiah, while they were starting to go back to the religion, where was their what? Where was their heart?
Themselves.
And it became more of just a national thing. Hey, look at us. We as a nation are back doing our national stuff. But they didn't care about God or right, what is good. So here comes Zephaniah saying, oh yeah, by the way, Nebuchadnezzar, he named him, Babylon is going to come and he's going to destroy you. He's saying that when they're in a revival. Which is kind of interesting. But at the same time, what? Yes, Nebuchadnezzar's coming. Babylon's going to come and destroy you. He's going to just destroy this temple. It's going to be gone, but still what? Can there still be rejoicing? Why? Because chapter 3. Starting in verse 14. How does he end this prophecy? After he talks about the judgment on Israel and the judgment on all the nations, he says, sing! Why? Why should I sing about that? Sing, O daughters of Zion. Shout, O Israel. Be glad and rejoice with all the heart, O daughter of Jerusalem. The Lord hath taken away thy judgments. He has cast out thine enemy. The King of Israel, even the Lord, is in the midst of thee. Thou shalt not see evil any more. Because there's coming a time when he will cleanse them. And he will sit upon the throne, and they will never go through this ever again. Now, again, whenever I read this stuff, it's like, yeah, it's great for people in the future, but the people that are going to have to go through some tough times, right? And they're still going through some tough times, but still, God is faithful, right?
Amen.
And by the way, anybody at this time who is reading this and turn to God, would God watch over them? Mm-hmm. Would God bless them and take them and be his children? And by the way, would they be then coming back with him in that millennial kingdom to rule with him? Yes. So there's hope for even people at this time if they will just turn to God. Verse 17, the Lord thy God is in the midst of you, is mighty. He will save. He will rejoice over you with joy. He will rest in his love. He will joy over you with singing. I will gather them that are sorrowful for the solemn assembly who are of thee, and to whom the reproach of it was a burden. Talking about burdens. So yeah. Talking about, hey, I'm going to turn that mourning into joy because I will rejoice over you. That's kind of an interesting twist, isn't it? You rejoice because I'm faithful. I'm going to rejoice because I finally get my wife. I finally get my people to worship me and be my people. Verse 19, behold, at that time I will undo all that afflict you. I will save her that halteth, and gather her that was driven out, and I will get them praise and fame in every land where they had been put to shame. Very similar. Very similar language in these minor prophets. I'm going to bring them back, and those nations where they went, where they were put to shame, they're going to be renowned. Those are God's people, right? At that time I will bring you again, even in time that I gather you. I will make you a name and a praise among all people of the earth when I turn back your captivity before your eyes, saith the Lord. And again, this goes back to the whole world will know that he is God, right? And he is king, and they are his people. Is there hope in this?
Yes.
Whew, 2 more. You ready for this? How about Haggai? Haggai is all about the temple. Haggai comes along, and what do you notice different about him? What's that word right there? Post. This is where we start the post-captivity people. And Haggai basically comes right in the period where Nehemiah has been absent, and so Haggai kind of comes and fills in. And this is the time when they're rebuilding the temple. And he admits this temple isn't nearly as nice as that Solomon one. I love when he's like, hey, you guys, you really old people who were here 70 years ago and saw the other temple. I know it ain't so nice, but it's a temple. There were people, I guess. There must have been people that actually came back, had seen the old one. But even in that, what does he say in chapter 2, verses 6 and 7? For thus saith the Lord of hosts. That's always a good start, right? There's that word again. Yet once it is a little while, and I will shake the heavens and the earth and the sea and the dry land, and I will shake all nations, and the desires of all nations shall come, and I will fill this house with glory, saith the Lord of hosts. And by the way, that's a dead-on prophecy to the fact that God will shake the world with an earthquake, and then he will come and he will build, during that millennial kingdom we saw in Ezekiel, that wonderful new temple, right? That beautiful temple where he will come and will fill it, right? And this is another one of those that could be different times too. Because the temple they're building then, who comes and stands in that temple that they are building right here at Haggai? Jesus, God himself, comes into that temple. And by the way, when he died on the cross, what happened to that temple that they're building here in Haggai? It shook and the thing ripped from the top to the bottom. So it could be that and also a future, right? That he will build and there will be beautiful again and he will inhabit it again. There will be what? Reconciliation. God will reside again with his people in his temple. In fact, look at 20 through 23, same chapter. How does he finish up? And again, the word of the Lord came unto Haggai in the 24th day of the month, saying, Speak to Zerubbabel, governor of Judah, saying, I will shake the heavens and the earth. Now, Zerubbabel is descendant of David, who coming out of the Babylonian captivity was the leader. Not king, what do they call him? Governor. And I will overthrow the throne of kingdoms, and I will destroy the strength of the kingdoms of the heathen, and I will overthrow the chariots and those that ride in them, and the horses and their riders shall come down, every one by the sword of his brother. Does that sound familiar? Mm-hmm. We had another prophecy about that Armageddon, they will fight against each other and kill one another in the valley. In that day, saith the Lord of hosts, will I take thee, O Zerubbabel, my servant, the son of Shealtiel, saith the Lord, and I will make thee as a signet, for I have chosen thee, saith the Lord of hosts. And again, this is another sign. David on down through Zerubbabel, on down through who? Christ. It's his descendant that Zerubbabel's the what? Signet. He's the sign. He's the marker. But who's going to be the descendant that will sit upon that throne? His descendant, which is who? Jesus Christ. Will sit upon the throne after he comes. Boy, there's consistency here, isn't there? Yeah. How many always thought Revelation was just its own little revelation out there, its own little prophecy out there, all by itself? Rest, how many of these are revelation prophecies? And he's been telling them how long? Forever. In fact, one last one. Let's go to Malachi. So what happened to Zechariah? Well, we did that last week. So Zechariah had a bunch, so we did this own week. Now Malachi, I love reading Malachi. Malachi is I love the format. It's like, oh, you've done terrible things, and him asking in the book, what terrible things have we done? He lays it all out. Here's all the terrible things you've done. They are a sinful nation. They are a sinful people, and they have sinful what? Leaders. And again, this is post-captivity. So they learn? Do we learn? All of these were, because of your constant sinning and everything, I'm going to send you, disperse you, I'm going to send you to captivity, I'm going to destroy you. And they come out of captivity, and what's their response? Still a sinful nation. What do we do wrong? What are we doing wrong? Oh, we're not doing anything wrong. But even in that, is there hope? Even though they're clearly hard-headed, is there still hope? In fact, look at chapter 3, verse 16. Start there. Then they that feared the Lord spake often one to another, and the Lord hearkened and heard it, and a book of remembrance was written before him for them that feared the Lord and that thought upon his name. So after he had, again, dispersed them, right? There will always be some who what? Fear the Lord. And will he always remember them? And they shall be mine, saith the Lord of hosts. And in that day when I make up my jewels, and I will spare them, as a man spares his own son that serves him, then shall you return and discern between the righteous and the wicked, between him that serves God and him that serves him not. And again, Zechariah talks about that. As they come back, he will discern who are the ones that truly believe in me and who doesn't, right? And who will come into the land? Those who what? Fear him. Chapter 4, for behold, the day comes that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith the Lord of hosts, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch. But unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings, and shall go forth and grow up as calves of the stall. And you shall tread down the wicked, and they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet in the day that I shall do this, saith the Lord of hosts. So again, Israel is coming back, right? And they will be the rulers, and they will destroy all their enemies, and they will live in peace. Who says so?
God.
Now how do we know all this is going to happen?
God said so.
Plus, anybody know how Malachi ends? It's the last.
Minor prophet.
This is the last of all the prophets of the Old Testament. It's the end of the Old Testament. From the time Malachi says, chapter 4, verse 6, 400 years will pass before John the Baptist is foretold to his dad, Zechariah. 400 years. Again, a long time? What was 400 years ago? 1624. 400 years is a long time. And what were the last words God had for his people? Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And he shall turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. And who is that one who comes in the power of Elijah? John the Baptist. So did God keep his promise? Will he keep all of these promises?
Yes.
Yes, he will.
They're spoken.
And by the way, just not to leave them out, Obadiah and Nahum and Habakkuk also have little short one-verse references. So just not to leave them out. Obadiah, which is probably the first, by the way, first of the minor prophets. Obadiah's first, Malachi's last. And his is all about Edom. Now, Edom. We've heard Edom several times. Edom is the descendants of Esau.
Yeah.
Edom means red. And Esau, as we know, was very hairy red. so very red in Edom. And there is a reference there that Edom, their land, will be part of this kingdom. And it talks about the borders of the great kingdom of the King of Kings. And how it will encompass them and all those other areas that he talked about in Ezekiel and stuff like that. Nahum talks about how there will be a cleansing of his people. Again, that happens when? The millennial kingdom, right? The cleansing of people, and they will be his, and he will be their God. And then Habakkuk talks about the earth being filled with the knowledge of the Lord. So, again, that's coming, right? That day is coming. So there are just minor little references to them. Zechariah we looked at last week, so here's your quiz for the night. Who doesn't? Who of the 12 minor prophets doesn't have a reference to the millennial kingdom? Jonah. Which is kind of interesting because Jonah is the sign, right? He is the one. Just as he was 3 days in the belly of the well, so the Christ will be 3 days in the belly of the earth as a sign that God will be faithful and keep all of his promises, right? So, it's kind of in there. Kind of in there. So, all right? So what's the overall message here?
Jesus' promise.
Yeah. God is faithful. There is always hope in who?
Jesus. God.
In God. Jesus, yep. Again, obviously the millennial kingdom is about Israel. But is it about us too? Because let's face it, do we need to know these two things too?
Yes.
Especially in light of all of this. Even when they were not faithful, even when they went away, God would never be unfaithful to his promises. He will keep all of his covenants. So when Jesus said, and took that cup, and said, this is a new covenant in my blood. Does he keep his covenants? Will the blood of Jesus Christ wash away all your sins? And will you be with him for eternity?
Amen.
Will you reign with him for 1,000 years and then live in that new heaven and that new earth forever? Yes, God has said so. Right? And where's our hope? Only in God. Not in revivals and prosperity and other things, other gods, and all the things of this world. There's no hope in those, but is there always hope in God? So what should we do? As he says, these minor prophets said it over and over again. Turn to your God. Follow your God. And we'll look at that next week. That was the overall message every single time. Repent and turn to your God. We need to do the same, don't we? Turn to him. Trust in him. Know him for your salvation, but know him every day, right? And follow him. Okay? So that's a nice run through the minor prophets. That was quick, huh? The Millennial Kingdom's all over the Old Testament. Have you gotten that picture yet? All right, next week we will do a little bit of review and also see what Jesus said. So we'll go to the New Testament. There's actually some stuff in the New Testament also other than the book of Revelation. So we'll go through that next week as we finish up the study on the Millennial Kingdom. And hopefully, if nothing else, you've come to realize that the Millennial Kingdom is going to happen and is talked about a lot in the Bible. And it's going to be what? Cool. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. And we will reign with him. We know that's the promise, right?